Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything that we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am one of your hosts, Cameron Hawkins, and with me, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, you're Dragon Quest swagged out today.
Oh, I had to wear this shirt. This is only
Yeah.
proper. I'm just showing up for work today, you know? That's what's up.
No, it's just a normal day of business.
For people that are listening to the audio version of this, because this conversation makes no sense so far, I am wearing a button-up shirt that is just covered in Dragon Quest slimes. Like, it's like a Dragon Quest slime pattern.
Slime
Making all
drip.
kinds of different little faces. You got the main face is like the pocket. I don't know how you can tell from the camera angle. I don't know if you're in view. There are some metal slimes hiding too. There's like three of them, I think, on this shirt somewhere.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and you're all Dragon Quested out because we got to go hands-on with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D remake. HD-2D remake. I got to play it at PAX East. You were invited to their LA office to play it just a few days ago. We're recording this the day before the embargo, so May 26th is when we're recording this. And we both really, really loved the HD-2D remake of 3. And from what we gathered from our time playing, or at least from my experience, this game is one is seemingly coming together as a single package. When you choose between the games, it's in the same menu. They're packaged together. But also like a lot of new stuff, going into both of these games. Specifically, they wanted to mention that the first game is getting even more new stuff than the second game. And up until the point of us playing, we only knew that really at this point, like, oh, there's going to be a seemingly fourth party member who is one of the siblings of one of the current party members.
Yeah, for two.
Yeah, for 2. So Kevin, you got to play a bit more than I did because during the same appointment for me, I got to go hands-on with Bravely Default, and I kind of spent more time there than I did with Dragon Quest. So let me know your thoughts on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 so far.
Yeah, so I think the immediate thing I want to bring up is kind of like my expectation going into this versus coming out. Because, like, given that we got Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D last year, I very much expected 1 and 2 HD-2D to be like that, but again. Which is, like, mostly true, but they're actually making a lot of additional changes. Because it's not just, like, the changes to, like, oh, like, we're adding stuff to 1 and 2, and, like, there's the extra character. There's, like, core gameplay stuff that's a little different from how it was in 3 HD-2D, even. Like, they had that extra year, and they were like, you know what? Yeah, like, we're going to make these changes and updates, but we're going to do some other stuff as well. That was very surprising to me. I also can't decide if it was... I wish I, like, brought my Switch or something to do like a back and forth comparison, because I swear the world map looks better on 1 and 2. Like, I feel like it just looked a little bit better than like 3 did. Like, just a little more detail, a little more like stuff going on it. I don't know, like visually, even though it's still HD-2D, I feel like they're just getting better and better at making environments look like nicer with every game. Not just Dragon Quest, but just like the HD-2D aesthetic in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think I really took note of that or took notice of that. But it looks really good.
It does look good.
Yeah, some of the things that they particularly noted in the during our playtime, like we had like a little presentation before,
Sure.
is that in Dragon Quest 1, it is no longer 1v1, just 1v1 fights.
Nope.
You can get into fights with multiple enemies at once. You are still just by yourself. You don't have any other party members. It's just you. So I thought that was interesting. But I also think that, like, one of the things that was immediately refreshing to me was the amount of variety in gameplay for the hero
Yes.
in Dragon Quest, both Dragon Quest 1 and 2. I was just like, because I think that 3, like, once you figure out how the hero plays a role in your party, because you kind of like build around, like, I built my hero kind of around the party members I had more so than like hero first and then the party members.
Sure.
And that was partially because like I wanted to have the same classes as what I did when I originally played, just for a little bit of nostalgia. So, I had the warrior, I had the mage, I had the priest going into the sage, like I had all that stuff. Um this time around, like there's just immediately felt like that there was a wider variety of ways to approach combat,
Yeah.
which was really exciting.
I think that's what's
Go ahead, Kevin.
I think that's what's really neat about Dragon Quest 1 and how they're adapting it a little bit more is that because you only have the hero, it's kind of a bigger deal to like know what your kit does and use the right answer for the right situation, right? Like
Yes.
suddenly using Scorch to hit all enemies and knowing which enemies are weak to fire is kind of more important now because you have to decide on your turn if you're healing yourself or, hitting all enemies for a certain damage type and that kind of thing. And so like having the efficiency of using the right skill with the right enemy, I think is a very neat thing. And that actually does tie into one of the new updates in this game that it's kind of wild to me that this is like new to this and has not been in any Dragon Quest prior. Enemy weaknesses are highlighted. Like you have a way of knowing, like outside of just like trial and error and eventually seeing, oh, those damage numbers are kind of higher. I think that's weak to this. Now the game straight up is like, oh, this enemy type that like you fought before, like yeah, this damage type is what hurts them, and it even highlights your abilities in the UI, like before targeting a specific enemy. So you'll know right away, like, hey, like, oh, Sizz is lighting up. So that means that one of the enemies I'm going up against is weak to fire. And then when you select it, you'll see which enemy is weak to that. Which is great because I feel like elemental damage types have always been like a thing in past games, but I feel like it has never been like properly highlighted or emphasized ever. Like not even a time where the game was like, hey, like make sure to pay attention to what enemies take more damage. Like no, it was a thing, but it's never really been focused on I was seeing it in this one, which is really interesting.
Yeah, because in Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D remake, that was the first one that I played, and it could have been a thing in 11, and maybe I just am not sure, where like you would get the red damage number when you did something effective, you hit a weakness.
Yes.
And so like you get to remember that, and now they just were like, hey, we're just gonna make it so that the game remembers, and then you don't have to like think about that stuff, which is nice. And it's funny just because like that's kind of just like a very common mechanic or feature in most JRPGs, and then Dragon Quest is like, hey, 40 years later, we're finally bringing it, which is really funny. But the one thing, because when I noticed that, I did talk to one of the Square reps, and I asked them, hey, is this something y'all are going to update to Dragon Quest 3? Because this is a trilogy, and they're presented the same in basically every way. Like, it only makes sense that you would update Dragon Quest 3 to include this. And as far as they were aware, that is not happening. And I think that is a mistake. I think that is unfortunate.
I agree, that would be great. Yeah, I wouldn't expect it either, but like I would like that, especially because yes, it is a package. And that actually is something I want to touch on real quick because I meant to bring this up kind of at the start of talking about this. So for anyone that hasn't like played Dragon Quest 3 yet, or you haven't really looked at the Dragon Quest franchise, it might be a little weird and a little confusing that we got 3 last year and then upcoming this year is 1 and 2. That is because this is a trilogy. Like historically, 1, 2, and 3 were always tied together, but 3 was a prequel. 3 took place before the other ones. You're playing as a character that's referenced in the first 2 games. And so like that was like a whole cool thing back at the time. Like, oh, I get to play as like the legendary hero. And what they're doing with this one is that even though they are still numbered 1, 2, and 3, they are approaching this set of remakes with the intent that you play 3 first and then go into 1 and 2. And that's not just in the sense of like, oh, we released 3 first, and that's where we think people should start. Part of the updates with 1 and 2 is similar to 3. We're getting expanded story elements. 1 especially, because 1, if you've ever played the original 1, that is a bare bones game story wise. Like,
Yes.
you are the hero, you have to go defeat the big bad person, and you go around like getting leveled up and stronger so you can do that. And like there are kind of little arcs of things you do, but it's basically go to this place to kill this bad thing, then go to this place to kill this bad thing. It's very simple. And so with this remake, we're getting a lot of extra story in 1 where like even right away, I did the very beginning of the game was where my demo took place. And the opening dungeon has this whole extra plot bit where you like run into other adventurers at the gravesite you're visiting, which is like the gravesite of the original hero from 3. And like there's this whole thing where like you run into them and they're talking about how they want to like try and like find stuff before you, and you can run into them in the dungeon and like talk to them a little bit. There's some kind of fun that they're almost a little like slapstick dumb. When like
Yeah.
you run into them one with some situations. I think my favorite one was one that was like squaring off with the slime, and they're all freaked out, and you talk to the slime and it's asleep. Like it's just like, oh, whatever. I'm not trying to do anything. But the point I want to make is that they're adding a lot more story elements that are actively tying back more to 3 as like a starting point. There's this like there's more callbacks and like strength to 3 being where these things start. And so for some reason you heard about 1 and 2 coming after 3, and you're like, oh, well, I'll wait for those and play 3 next. No. Play 3 right now. And 1 and 2 are building off of that as their base.
Sorry, you froze for a sec again. So I was just like, I didn't want to start talking, and then you froze. You froze. Yeah, I think it's really cool how they have this opportunity to not particularly recanonize, but just reapproach this trilogy of games that at the time it was like, oh, you play Dragon Quest 3 and you don't know till like the very end of the game that you're actually playing as Erdrick the entire time. You are Erdrick. And now it's like, hey, you know who Erdrick is now. Let's redo some things. Let's add some things to make it feel like a more expressive, meaningful story in this world comparatively.
Absolutely. And I obviously don't know details, but it was kind of hinted to me that like there will be stuff in 2 that very much gives this sense of like, oh, 2 is where the story ends, and it kind of like puts a bow on this as a trilogy a little bit. I don't know what that means exactly. I assume maybe it's like some ending bits, or I don't know, maybe Erdrick shows up like a force ghost at the end or something. But like there is some kind of like, 2 is the end of a trilogy, and we're treating it like the end of a trilogy, and not just like this is the second game. Here you go.
Yeah, I think that Dragon Quest. I think Dragon Quest 2 is very, very good. I really, really enjoyed my time with Dragon Quest 2, but it does just kind of end. Like it is one of those things that once I finished 3, I was like, oh, so that's the end of the timeline for Dragon Quest 2. Okay, that's interesting. And so like having something a bit more finite, a little bit more complete, will be very nice to see. And in general, just having these games remade, similarly to how I feel about Dragon Quest 3, I actually like really enjoyed the Switch versions of like the mobile remakes. Like I know that people had issues with like, the character models and things like that, and that stuff is totally valid. But I think just performance wise, how it ran, like how it played, it did the job, and I had a good time with it. And so like getting this in such a new presentation and format, it's like I'm very excited to re-experience the first 2 Dragon Quest games again. Even though I should be playing the ones I haven't played already. But yes, it's very exciting. And one of the things that we didn't talk about yet is that the release date. So this is coming out on October 30th. And we both were talking about this off the pod, where we both had the expectation that this was going to come out like within 6 months of the launch of 3.
Yeah.
I think that when
Back when
it was
3 had
initially,
released, at least. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Not as much anymore.
when,
Like, once we hit April, I was like, oh, maybe that's not happening.
yeah, like I expected it to be at the direct, like that last Switch direct. Like, okay, we're gonna get the release date, and then we didn't. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what's happening now. Uh, and and I think that like initially we didn't kind of what you said. We didn't expect Dragon Quest 1 and 2 to be like these get this major additional new content comparatively to 3, that we thought like, oh, this is just going to be like a nice like coat of paint. It's going to be like a little bit more one for one, and it's going to come out in like 6 months.
Yeah.
But no, they're doing even more.
Yeah.
And that's what's like really cool. Like, yes, it's being packaged together. Yes, the games are smaller comparatively, but they're doing more, and that's really exciting. Because for me, even though I did really enjoy that trilogy, I really loved Dragon Quest 3, and the adventure I went on. I didn't really care about that world a whole lot. And I honestly think that's like my biggest just general criticism with Dragon Quest so far playing through the series, is that like I don't care about like the world at large.
Sure.
And so I'm hoping that this new additional content is going to change that. Because I think that even though I feel that way, I still really love 3 because of like the sense of adventure and like the eventful things that you do during that game, even if like the world and like the details of the world aren't particularly interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how that's going to play in going into Dragon Quest 1 and 2.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think there's opportunity for that, because also, like, without getting into the in depth, there are also some reasons why, like, this world, I feel like in some ways you don't get enough time with it in 3, and I think 1 and 2 is like a good way to, uh, it's like you're saving the same place time and time again now, and because they are intentionally making this as a set, I'm interested if there's going to be some nice little new details and callbacks to like seeing how the world evolves with each time skip. You know, what towns are gone, what towns have been built, like what little callbacks will there be to like a, you know, can you go to a village in one game and there will be there a callback to like something that was said in it, you know, the one game ago. I'm very interested in seeing like how it feels like there's a lot more intent going into this being a set and trying to build more connections between them. And obviously we haven't been able to see that yet because we've only gotten 1 out of the 3, and we're getting the next 2 together as a package. Yeah, there's just a lot more opportunity now to have these feel like almost like one gigantic game. And I'm very curious to see like how that actually plays out. One thing I do want to touch on too, because we talked a little bit more about 1, really, because like all the new story additions and like, you know, kind of baking that out a little more and having to rely on the single character. For people that don't know their history with the game, so 2, you do have a party. It is not like 3 where you're making, you know, your own custom units and getting to pick their classes and everything. They are set characters, and based at least on the first trailer, like the big trailer we got, we might have a new 4th character. It's unclear if like there's going to have like if they're going to be a big NPC, if there's going to be side quests with them, if they're going to join the party for like the main quest. We just don't really know. But like I was able to play with the party of 3 for a good bit. I think what's really interesting is there has been some expansion to them a little bit, because like, you know, back when 2 originally released, it was very bare bones, and it was like a big deal that like, oh yeah, the main character can use all the weapons and is like a good strong character, and then later characters can cast spells, and it's different spells, and one of them is a little more jack of all tradesy, the other one's like all magic. This time around, I mean, now people have abilities. The main character has
Yes.
special weapon skills they can use. Even the main dedicated magic user has a handful of like special abilities that seem to be a little themed off of the Beastmaster added in 3. It's like sort of like, oh, like she's good with animals and like befriends them, so she can summon them to help in the combat and, you know, deal physical attacks to enemies. So like that's a really cool way that's like thematically fleshing the character out a little more and also expands the kit a bit. And I'm just very... I want to see the rest of the moves, because that's the thing with Dragon Quest, is that like when you're low level, you have all the question marks that fill all the abilities you haven't learned yet. And I was like, oh, there's quite a few for like the ability kits in some of these characters, and I don't know what they're gonna learn, because They didn't have that before.
Yeah, I need to stop saying yeah one after you're done talking. But no, you're right. I think that the kind of, harking back on the expansion of like these heroes, these characters in these games and what they're able to do. The addition of abilities in general, like across all three of these games, has just like added such a great layer of combat to everything. And I'm curious as to, similar to you, as to how these kits are going to play out, because unlike the personality mechanic, right, in 3, these characters are going to seemingly have just like set abilities that you unlock and spells that you unlock when you get to certain levels. And I'm also curious if like there's going to be maybe more um post game content, or if there's
Mm,
going to be any post game content or anything that's like near the end of the game where you do need to grind your way up to be able to defeat and like really see how the potential of like the systems out at play. Because I think that in 3 I didn't feel like the the want or need to do that,
mhm.
because it was so like you had so much like options in the sense of the personality stuff and like who your party is. I like the idea of like, okay, you have these like set characters and you got to figure a way to make them work
Yeah.
to overcome these challenges.
There's a little bit more of like, I mean, sure, you can always grind at the end of the day, but kind of like what I was saying with 1, where you only have the one character to work with, right? When you have constrained tools and options, it's now less about how do you build a super powerful broken team, and it's more of how do you use and leverage the options you have to like best take down enemies. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to grind a little bit and maybe overlevel a little, like help out, but it's not quite to the same degree as like 3, where it's like, oh, I'm going to reclass this person multiple times to get their stat bonuses as high as possible, and I have 3 sages with all these spells to work with. Like that is not an option. You got to work with the tools you're given. So yeah, it is shaping up really nicely. I think my biggest takeaway, honestly, aside from like, oh sweet, elemental weaknesses are a thing now, and like there's all these new story elements, like that's great. My biggest takeaway was I wish I had more time to play. Like
Yes.
what snippet I got, because like I just want more. Like I just want more. Like there's just so much more I want to see with this game, and October is not far away, but farther away than I want it to be for these. But I can't wait.
I only played uh maybe 20 minutes between both games, because again I was also checking out Bravely Default at the time, and
Hmm.
there was only one setup for Bravely Default, and so I took, and this was not a one-on-one thing. There was like a group of like 6 or 7 people,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I got to go on Bravely Default if I want to get a chance to play Bravely Default. And then and so it just like, that's just how it happened. And so the part in Dragon Quest 2 that I did was basically getting all the marks from the different the different kings and queens.
Hmm.
So basically like all the parents, right? You're going to all the parents being, and you get these like segments where it's focusing on one of the 3 party members. And it's been a minute since I played Dragon Quest 2. It's been like a couple of years. I don't remember it. I don't remember like this part of the game where you're getting these marks and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed that little part. It was just like, okay, I'm getting like world stuff. I'm getting character stuff. I'm getting the things that I want from Dragon Quest that I feel like is missing a lot of the time. It's giving me like, hey, here's why you need to do this. Here's why it's important. Like, because I always thought, even though like, Fire Emblem exists, Fire Emblem, you have a bunch of nobles, you have a bunch of like um people of higher standing or whatever. But I really liked how Dragon Quest 2 was just like, okay, all the party members are descendants of the hero from the first game. And how does that play a part in the world? How does that play a part in the story, because in the original trilogy, more or less, like through my experience, in my opinion, it was like, oh, you beat the Dragon Lord, and then you get to the second one. All right, here's the Dragon Lord's grandson, and he's kind of a complete dork and loser. Um, and that's really the outside of like you being the descendants of the hero, really the only connection, like major connection in the main story, is that you run into the Dragon Lord's grandson, and then 3 doesn't feel like it's connected at all until it immediately is.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really excited for them to have this opportunity to add these things, recontextualize stuff, and make this whole trilogy as a trilogy feel more meaningful. And so that's really exciting. I can't wait to play it. I'm going to eat that shit up. I hope that they do a physical release for the Switch too. If not, then I have my physical for 3 on Switch. I'll just do it on the original Switch again. And we'll just go about it that way. But very excited. Kevin, do you have any last thoughts before we call it?
I was trying to go over my head if there was anything else from my demo that we haven't like talked on or touched on very well, but I think we got all the main bits.
Yeah.
And like, obviously all the updates from 3 HD-2D are here too, including things like being able to speed up battles because oh man, does the regular attack animation take forever. I put that thing on ultra fast right away, and even that was still like I could use a little faster. Like this is better. This is much better. But yeah, all the speed. Yeah. All in all, fantastic little demo. I loved 3 HD-2D, and I'm very excited to see what kind of where this all goes with 1 and 2, because I think we're going to see a lot. I mean, like I know we're going to see a lot more changes and a lot of additions, and I hope it does tie a nice little bow on like the whole thing as a package. It makes it feel like a package.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Dope. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to our preview on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D Remake. You can follow us on Patreon if you want to throw a couple of bucks our way. We have a bunch of tiers, like getting into our Discord, monthly Q&A, Campfire Catalog, our book club podcast, which the next game we're doing is The Legend of Dragoon. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Party Chat, a JRPG podcast. Give us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice. Go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson. Give him a subscribe over there as he's trying to get to 1 million subs before the end of this year. You can follow me on socials at CamFinalMix, and you can follow Kevin on socials at Kevin Kenson. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you later.
Later.